this idea of your identity built on what other people had invested in the situation, right? Their needs, their expectations from your kids, from your parents, to all of that. Is this common in your practice? Are you seeing a lot of women in midlife that are like, I have no idea who the fuck I am? And I need to figure that out.
Yeah, we then lose sight of ourselves. I think it's a matter of like getting a little bit more comfortable saying no. Think about, what am I saying yes to? I'm saying yes to giving more of myself away. Maybe I need to take some time for me. It's not necessarily going to be easy, and it's not even the first time that you do it that all of a sudden you're going to start feeling better. It might actually feel a lot like grief, because you're letting go of an old way of being. It might start to feel a little bit more uncomfortable at first, but in doing and over functioning and giving all of ourselves away, I mean, right now we've got nothing left anyway.
Once women can really start to give themselves permission to do that, that's when their whole lives open up. Welcome to Drinks with the Girls. Conversations for women over 40 around connection, change, and the power of female friendship. Living well with stories to tell. I'm Karen, and this is Lisa.
We are moms and solopreneurs stepping into our own, diving into real conversations about things that matter to women in midlife.
We're here to spill the tea on everything that affects women in their 40s and beyond. Topics like loss and grief, changing relationships, launching kids, menopause, and reinventing ourselves in midlife. We are here to tackle it all.
Connect with us through a blend of our lived experiences, our friendship, the memory of our moms, plus a collection of real stories, honest conversations, and engaging interviews that will make women over 40 feel seen and remind them that they're not alone on this journey called life. Let's go.
Welcome back to another episode of Drinks with the Girls. This is going to be a good one. It is a 2.0 to our first trauma episode. And this one will be great because we're going to dive a little deeper and we're going to go a little further. And as always, we are going to give you tips and golden nuggets to take away at the end. But before we really get going, I need to tell you what I'm drinking. And it is a very crisp, and I don't know even who makes it, but it's a very crisp Chardonnay in my personalized chicken glass.
I love those glasses. They're so cute.
I also have my iced tea. So
was that hand painted? I know your daughter got those as a gift for you. That is so cool.
Yeah.
Love
she
it.
had my 4 favorite chickens put on wine glasses for Mother's Day 2 years ago.
Yeah. She didn't have them put on like soup pots or something. That would have been a little weird.
That would be bad. No, that would be bad. What are you drinking, Lisa?
I am double fisting ice water and a lovely freak show Cabernet, Michael Petit, because I am going out with a bang. My lovely colonoscopy is on Wednesday. So after tonight, it's delicious liquids and popsicles and that oh so scrumptious nasty prescription stuff that they give you. So I'm like, I'm going to do all the things today and carb load like I'm running a marathon because yuck.
Fun times. Fun times. Well, today we have with us Alyssa Scarano. She is a licensed professional counselor and the founder and clinical director of Virtual Therapy and Wellness. And we are so excited you are here, Alyssa. So tell us a little bit about what you do. But first of all, let us know what you're drinking.
I am drinking, very reluctantly sharing this, I'm drinking my 3rd cup of coffee for the day.
Oh, so, dang, girl. What time zone are you in?
Eastern. It's 8 p.m. here. So,
whoa,
yeah,
that is brave. Dang.
Yeah.
You have trouble sleeping? That doesn't affect you?
Sleeping? Did you say sleeping?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I can fall asleep like this. Really, at any given point.
I'm so jealous. Wow. Yeah. No, I'd be like, all right, no sleep happening tonight. What can I read or do or accomplish or whatever?
I don't know. My son is still, he's going to be 5 and he's still not sleeping so great throughout the night. So I think this is a result of just like 5 years almost of sleep deprivation. So for me, it's like just being able to fall asleep whenever. I'm very, thrilled. There's always broken up sleep. So,
Well, you do you.
yeah.
So we did an episode on trauma, and we call it like trauma part 1 or trauma 101, because it was really just, kind of educating ourselves and our listeners on like what trauma is, how it shows up in our body, big T trauma, little t trauma, things like that. So today we want to really dive into breaking the generational patterns that really don't serve us anymore, and those patterns that may have developed from generational trauma or trauma that we have in childhood. But before we really do that, can you just give us a little snippet on what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I help people with relationships, particularly first with the relationship that they have with themselves. So healing from childhood trauma, addressing childhood wounds, rewriting the narratives that are taking place, right in your mind that are interfering with your daily living, maybe your relationships, maybe with the way that you're relating to your experiences, whether that be at work or at home. So we're really looking to rewire the way that you're relating to yourself and the way that you're relating to other people. And I do that in a very relational way, really trying to create an environment through the therapeutic relationship where people can maybe feel a sense of being held or a sense of grace or a sense of belonging. And sometimes that's often like the first time in their life, maybe that they've felt that. So that's one of the things that I try to integrate into every therapeutic experience that I'm providing, whether it's the first session or the 30th session, for however long that you're working with me. The therapeutic relationship is the key, really. And, I'm also the owner and clinical director of the virtual mental health practice. I have clinicians that on staff that take the same approach, and we're licensed in 5 states. So we service clients in Florida, in Missouri, in New Jersey, New York, and Texas. And one of the things that I think sets us apart is that our care, we try to be whole person, whole body focused. So our clients, not only are you coming to us and we're going to be able to, provide you with that relational therapy, but we also provide wellness services to current clients at no additional cost. And so we have you know certified experts in their field, in their respective fields, that are going to be able to help people establish a mindfulness practice, a self-love practice. I have a certified nutritionist that's going to be joining our staff as well. He's a personal trainer. And so our current clients get access to those tools as well, so they can start healing from the past, but also making actionable change in the present. We want to really provide people with a lot of support and wraparound care, but in a whole person, whole body way. So, yeah.
So
That's amazing.
it is. And I have so many questions all at once, but I'll try to break it down. So, my friend who's also a licensed counselor, her name's Alex Casillas, she came on and did our first trauma episode. And one of the things we talked about was generational trauma and kind of like trauma stored in your body, like that's passed down from generation to generation to generation. Are you talking about generational trauma from that aspect, or in a different way? Tell me kind of where you sit on that.
Yeah, no, from all ways, really. A lot of the ways in which we learn how to treat ourselves, right? Our own self-talk comes from the way that our caregivers, our attachment figures, our parents really spoke to us, right? That's how we develop that language when we speak about ourselves or speak to ourselves. That language came from somewhere. And then so on and so forth. Our caregivers, their language, the way that they speak to us, the way that they speak to themselves, came from somewhere as well. So in terms of when we look at how we're relating to ourselves, that started somewhere, whether it was from experiences of watching or witnessing our parents together and who we felt like we needed to be within that family dynamic. Were we the peacekeeper as the children? Were we, the parentified child? Were we the one who came in and made the jokes to ease the tension in the room? What role did I feel like I had to play? And perhaps, like, how far did that pattern persist previously in my parents' lives when they were younger? What role did they play, right? So it's really looking at, where do these narratives and these belief systems come from? And then what is sustaining them too? Is it an unhealed wound? Is it the fact that I've gotten something out of this pattern that's keeping it in place? And ultimately, is it helpful, or is it holding me back?
So when you talk about the patterns, is that synonymous with kind of the roles that you were talking about, like the overachiever or the parentified parent or the jokester? Are those the patterns, or is that different? Are the roles and the patterns different?
No, I think it's all very much related. Yeah. So there you could be the overachiever, right? Because that was the way that you learned how, what love was. If as long as I'm performing, then I am loved. If I'm performing to the standard, then I'm loved. Whereas if I fail or I make a mistake, then there's a sense of being rejected. So that carries over then into your personal life, with your friendships, with your boss, with your significant other, and maybe leads to a belief to some degree of love being conditional. So the roles have an important part here in terms of keeping the pattern going.
Would you say that's a pretty big one with like women over 40? That, like, just the people pleasing and the getting the validation through performing?
Yes. And I would say another role that we as women often fall into is being compliant, right? The good little girl, right? Don't speak up, don't cause any trouble. That I think is a generational pattern that we are can still find ourselves getting stuck in at times. I'm not saying that's for all women, but there is still this sense of like, being maybe a little afraid to speak up or push limits, or I hope it's okay to curse here, but
Oh,
to don't be a bitch,
you
right? Like
obviously haven't gotten into some of our later episodes.
yeah, I just want to make sure. But yeah,
All good.
don't be a bitch, right? Like in reality, you see certain gender differences, and certain behavior might be quote unquote more acceptable from a male, right, in certain contexts, but no, not for a woman, right? Some of that is internalized, and some of that also is still very much the case. So those belief systems have been with women for a very long time. The caretaker, the overachiever, the overfunctioning person within the family dynamic.
Over functioning, my favorite particular habit.
I'm just thinking because I'm an empowerment and divorce coach for women over 40, and we work a lot on unhooking from some of those things. And I always think of it as just like the way that we're socialized as girls and women. How do you see things like this show up in a woman's life? Like, what are some things that are telltale signs that a woman is dealing with one of these little T traumas?
Yeah. So I think when it comes to generational patterns of behavior, it is sometimes, not always, a bunch of little t traumas, but reinforced many, many times over and over in different contexts and different social spheres. So for sure. And then how we see it come up is through that pattern. Like maybe it's a certain dynamic that follows you in many different relationships. Maybe it's something that you start to notice, like, whoa, I am over functioning in every area of my life, or I feel completely burnt out or depleted, or I feel like I'm giving so much of myself to everyone else and there's nothing left for me. There's just sometimes a perpetual state of just feeling even lost or unhappy and not really being sure, like, why is that? Or perhaps it feels like you're in survival mode. I think it's going to look a little bit different on each woman, on each person, just depending on what it is that you're struggling with. But the common theme, I think, is the extent of where you see that pattern showing up at the different, areas or domains of your life. And then what happens when you are alone? Are you often really just busy? Are you taking any time for yourself? That's also a telltale sign, I think, of like, perhaps I'm not doing that checking in and really knowing where I'm at, where my gas tank is. And then why not?
So I know one of the big kind of roadblocks to therapy that sometimes people throw in the way is I don't want to dig all that stuff up, right? And I can hear the back of my mind somebody going, not only do I not want to dig that stuff up, but I have no desire to dig all that stuff up, like generations of stuff. Like, what good is that going to do to stir it all up? So what would you say to someone that's a woman over 40 that's kind of running through her head.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the first thing I would say is like, it makes sense, right? Because for all these years you've gotten through without it, but how well is it working? Right? Like, at the same time, like, how are you feeling right now? Is this method of going that way, is it, the way that you've been, is it working? Is it giving you the results that you want? Right? And a little bit of like, we do have to look at some of it. Doesn't mean that we're going to stay there, but we're going to get to know, like, why is this, why do I feel stuck in this position, or it just keeps happening, this thing that I'm really struggling with it in different realms or in different ways, throughout all of these years. And why isn't, maybe it's time to take a look at what's causing that, reflexively, what keeps coming up. And truth be told, what often is the case, the next part of that conversation is like, okay, well, so what do I do about it? Right? Like, I don't want to feel this way. I just want to move forward. And part of that, I think, comes from where we're at society wise, is we're so used to just like unfortunately, like the quick fix, right? Or we could have a lot of immediate gratification nowadays, right? With easy access to all the information and all of the things within hours, right on our doorstep. You can order something and it shows up, 45 minutes later. And the truth is that there isn't a quick fix to some of this stuff. We do have to kind of open up the box and look at what's in the box that maybe you've been carrying around for quite some time, and ask ourselves, like, why is it still there? It's nothing to really be judgmental about it, right? It's more a matter of, let's get curious with ourselves. Do I really know myself? Do I really know why these things, this pattern that I'm finding myself in, it continues to repeat?
My name is Karen Shatafian, and I am a shameless coffee addict and empowerment coach for women, and my love language is authenticity. My mission is helping women unapologetically design a life they're in love with. Because what the hell are we waiting for? My website, KarenShatafian.com, has all my coaching packages and free offers, like my Midlife Reclamation Guide. In it, you'll find tools to help you decide how to create the most inspired and empowered version of yourself and your life. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram talking about ways women can show up for themselves after decades of showing up for everyone else. Join me as we throw off the shackles and live our best freaking lives. See the show notes for all the details. Cheers. I want to share something that it's ironic that we're recording this episode right after the week I had last week, because I literally had a meltdown. And I don't have meltdowns usually. And I think maybe that's why my meltdown was so massive, because I don't, it's like the balloon, if you don't let the air out, it's just going to get to the point it's going to pop. And so my kids, I have adult kids, they suggested a rage room. Do you ever prescribe that to your clients? Because when we got there, the people at the desk were like, did your therapist recommend this? And I'm like, no, but I need to go smash some shit right now, or else things are not going to be good. But
I've not recommended it, but I've got to tell you, I've wanted to go myself. So, and I'm a therapist.
I highly recommend it. Yeah. And I think too, and the way I was explaining it to my kids, it's like nothing happened. There wasn't like this thing that happened, but it was this buildup of decades, probably, of holding everything for everybody, doing everything for everybody, putting myself last. And it's not even, my kids aren't even little anymore. So I'm not like actively parenting like you two are, but I could feel it in my body, the years and years of doing that. And I got decision fatigue. I'm like, I don't want to decide where we're going to dinner, and I sure the hell don't want to cook it. And so thank goodness my kids they let me be the imperfect parent. Right. And so we went and we all did it, and it was amazing. And I'm going to write about my experience, because I think I'm going to start prescribing it to my clients also, because it was fantastic.
I know I've wanted to go. I just haven't had the time. Active parenting and running a business, it's like I don't even have a minute, right? So I'm in that over functioning stage right now, but I've wanted to go. I feel like it's a great outlet for people, for sure. I mean, the truth is, I think with anger, we're told a lot of things, right? Like, don't be angry, calm down, right? But we're not taught how to how to have our anger, what to do with it. And so if you've been really like holding on to all of that for so long, and yes, perhaps mom did too, perhaps her mom did also, the thing is that it has nowhere to go, and it's going to come out in some way, shape, or form, whether it's internalized or maybe we lose it on someone or something. And even then doesn't quench that sense of like the anger sometimes. So
yeah.
yeah.
And I think, to your point, like, we as women are not allowed to show that kind of anger. We're not allowed. Men can. I mean, it's not pretty, but they're allowed. We're not. I highly recommend it for everybody.
Yeah.
So if you've broken all the dishes and you've gone to the rage room and destroyed a couple really expensive TVs, at what point does self-compassion come in and healing those wounds, and how can women cultivate that in their lives? Because I know that just as we kind of rage against the machine, like compassion for oneself isn't always the first thing that comes to mind. Like typically, I mean, I know I have a habit of thinking before I go to bed, not of like, oh, I did this and I did that. It's more like, oh, I didn't get this done. I didn't get this done. You know what I mean? And I have to really consciously yank myself away from that cycle and have a little self-compassion. So at what point does that kind of come into the mix and play a major part in healing those wounds?
Yeah. So when we think about what anger really stands for, anger stands for some sort of injustice, unfairness that we experience, right? And because I think we're taught calm down, don't be angry, right? Anger is bad, or anger stands for something that, you shouldn't be in the world. We're not taught like really how to like use our anger for the better, right? If you're considering that your anger stands for something like, having been burned or having been hurt or having experienced something that was unkind, well, that deserves space right there. That's where the self-compassion comes in. That's where I can give myself some sort of kindness that maybe I wasn't extended to me, right? And that's where then I can honor what it is that I need. But because we're told, like, again, don't be angry, that piece of whatever it was, that injustice that we experience, doesn't get to be validated. So the self-compassion comes in right then and there when we get curious with what we're experiencing. What does it stand for? Why is this emotion here? And what is it telling me about what I need that I'm not getting? And how can I give that to myself? Our emotions really are just that. They're signals or tools or indications of some sort of need that is unmet. And so instead of, bottling them up because, well, I've got to keep moving, right? I've got to take care of everybody and everything. I'm over functioning out of a sense of survival. If I don't do it, no one else is going to. Like, those are learned patterns, right? But it can cause resentment because I don't really want to do it all. I don't really want to fucking cook dinner for another night in a row.
Preach.
So I think if we get curious, we allow ourselves to feel what we're feeling, and we get curious about what is it, this feeling or this emotion trying to tell me about what I need, that's where the compassion can then come in, instead of judgment, instead of resisting what we're feeling. Because that's where we run into, again, bottled up stuff.
Yeah. And I felt that last week. Like, honestly, I felt like I had to name it. I had to put it out, spit it out, talk about it. And as hard as it was, because, as parents, we don't like to show that part in front of our kids. But I'm like, I was at the point where I had to do something. So talking about it, naming it, owning it, and then moving that energy through my body through smashing shit. And I, like, halfway through, I started sobbing. Like, when I'm telling you this is a powerful technique, I mean, I was blown away. And afterwards, I felt exhausted, but I also felt lighter. Mm-hmm. So I think, and I had to be compassionate with myself, to just be okay with not being okay in front of my children, I think, which is a big fucking deal.
Wow.
I have to ask, what was your favorite thing that you smashed?
Well,
Inquiring minds and all.
there was this plywood piece that had like a little hole in it, and I took the baseball bat and I just whacked it until it broke in pieces.
Ooh,
It was
girl,
pretty
you
awesome.
go.
Yeah, but smashing the dishes was pretty fun too.
I was gonna say, like, I could,
Yeah.
Okay, I have so
Yeah.
many questions. We'll have to talk more about that someday. But I'm like, oh, this has potential.
So sorry to keep shining the light on myself, but I think it's just so timely. But so I think of all these humans walking around this planet with all this unhealed trauma, you know, big T's and little T's, right? Traumas. And so how does this affect like our mindset, our self-talk, our boundaries, our allowing ourselves pleasure or rest? Like how does it show up in those areas?
Yeah, and there's so many different types of patterns, right? Like this is what I do, and this is like with every single client that I'm working with is like we're uncovering what are the learned behaviors, what are the patterns and the rules, and why is this still very relevant? So there's all different shades of this, right? So if I'm naming a few, and I swear I'll give it to your question, it's like we do have that sense of like love, like learned experiences that love is conditional, right? On who I am, how I act, who I need to be. So that's one way that it shows up. So you see that in terms of like, overachieving or overfunctioning or performance. I can't be flawed. I can't break down, right? There's also other forms of it where there's like these learned narratives of it's my fault, right? Or I am bad, I'm wrong. So I think depending on what the learning is, like it's going to have roots and manifest in different ways. So in that sense, how it shows up in our self-talk is if the narrative is like it's my fault because I was always made to be, I was scapegoated growing up very often. I was the one who called like smoke in the room and nobody else said anything, right? But when I did that, all of a sudden now I'm being yelled at, right? I'm, as a very young kid, gonna take that with me and think like, I'm the only one here that sees this as a problem, right? It's me. I'm the one that has to deal with this problem all on my own. Why can't I just be enough the way that I am? This is kind of like how it's going to manifest. And you'll see it maybe come up in those relationships where I'm taking ownership of things that don't belong to me. So I think it kind of depends on the actual role that you're playing or like how it's going to show up. I don't know if I'm answering your question though.
No, you are. You definitely are. Thank you. Yeah.
So since Karen's bearing her soul, I should drop a few in. So one of the things that I'm working with my therapist on right now is boundaries. And I really, really thought that at 57, like I'd figured that out. Well, come to find out, not so much. And a lot of it I'm finding has to do with, you guessed it, like how I was parented, right? And I really thought I'd kind of done that work. But I am having a whole scene with caregiving for my elderly father, and that has brought up a lot of really messed up boundary issues and kind of I'm looking at those, right? And so I just, not only in my life, but I feel like boundaries and setting healthy ones are such a big deal, and we just suck at them as midlife women. Like there is just no other way to say it. So clearly, unhealed trauma affects the way that we set our boundaries, and I feel like that is such a difficult skill to learn, especially if you have trauma. So, like, I know how it's showing up for me. Can you give our listeners some ideas of like, you might have some boundary issues if blah, 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 this type of stuff has happened in the past?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, well, and that's just it, right? If I guess that's another way to kind of pinpoint, like maybe this is something I should seek out some help with, right? Is that if you do notice that, okay, I'm stuck in some people pleasing type of behaviors, or I feel like I'm just eating shit all the time and I've just got to roll over and take it and everybody else is allowed to walk in all over me, or I give too much away, right? If you're noticing that, right, that's an indication of like, okay, I'm having trouble connecting with people. I'm relying on these old things that I've learned in order to feel connected to other people. Because that's what we're talking about, right? When we have enmeshed boundaries, right, where that some of that stuff is happening and we're giving away parts of ourselves for free, really, it's because that's been the way that maybe we've known how to connect, and that's a human need, is to feel like we belong somewhere. So there's some grace even there, just FYI, around like, I'm doing this and I learned really young, and that was the way to like survive emotionally, was to give those parts away. And thank goodness that little girl like figured out a solution, because she didn't have one. So there's grace there. But in terms of what can I do, right? This is, I think, a really easy way to think about it. If you consider that your body, right, is like your home, and you get to decide in your home what you put on the walls, what it looks like when you walk in, what it feels like once you're there. You get to decide who comes into your home, how far they're allowed into your home, whether they're, somebody that you wave to from the front porch or you invite them in for dinner, and what time it's for them to leave. Like, you get to decide what you allow and what you don't allow. And if you can do that in your actual physical home, why can't you do that with your mental energy, your emotional energy, your finances? You can. So it's a matter of getting clear on what are the rules for that I want to like start living by, of like what I'm going to put up with. So I think that's a way to think about it. And if you get really clear on the feelings that you want to have when you're around people, then it's a matter of setting those expectations with the people in your life. And if they might not like it, because it might be years that they're used to you being a certain kind of way, that's okay. You know what? Sometimes we don't like things that when we can't get it our way. And I understand that's disappointing. You can't have this the way that it's been anymore. This is the way it's going to be now.
Hey there, I'm Lisa Corachella McDowell, your Midlife Pacific Northwest princess, here to guide you in the art of next leveling your life. I'm passionate about women's health and wellness in midlife, especially for moms parenting kids with unique needs like I do. I truly believe we can learn, grow, advocate, and care for the planet while taking care of ourselves and our families. And I'd love to help you do the same. And I'm beyond excited to tell you about my membership for maxed out mamas just like me, the Empowered Parent Collective. It's a space for parents to confidently advocate for their kids, build inclusive communities, educate themselves, and find balance and support along the way. To find out more about the Empowered Parent Collective, my classes, wellness offerings, parenting tips, advocacy resources, and exclusive Drinks with the Girls goodies, head to nextlevellifewithlisa.com. Let's survive and thrive in the messy middle together.
The word that keeps coming up for me, and this is a big word for me right now anyway in my business, but is reclamation. Because I feel like at this stage in our life, we are reclaiming so many things, either parts of ourselves that never really fully got developed because of one thing or another, or parts of ourselves that are gathering dust or that we've forgotten about, right? And I just feel like boundaries falls in that. And I just want to put in a little plug. I have a free Facebook group called the Reclamation Lounge.
I love
for
that
women
name.
over 40.
Yes,
and there's a lot of fun going on over there. Would you say that like breaking these patterns is like a reclamation of sorts?
Yes, absolutely. You're reclaiming your space. Like, think about, if you put it this way, right? Like, think about, maybe there's more than one person, but think about one person maybe that you've spent a lot of time thinking about an interaction with them, or that you're going to see this person and you're already thinking about what's that interaction going to be like? Oh, when I have them on the phone, or when I see them at the barbecue, or what are they going to say next? Like, think about how much mental energy, even emotional energy, right, that you're tying to that person. This is about reclaiming that energy and putting it to you, and putting it to the experience that you want to have when you're at this barbecue, wherever this interaction is going to take place. Like, that amount of time that you're giving it's a matter of giving that back to yourself. Yeah, reclaiming your mental energy, your emotional energy.
And how about, like, let's just keep that train going. We also get to this stage in life and we realize that our identities really were built on taking care of other people. right? And meeting other people's needs and expectations. And then we get to this stage in life and we're like, what the hell is going on? And so we start to reassess these identities. What practices or tools would you recommend for women who are in midlife, who are maybe kind of going through this, reinvention or reclamation with their identities?
Yeah. So if you think about what kind of home, right? When I'm thinking about like your body or that space when you can finally turn inward, right? Like, what do you want it to feel like? And then how can you cultivate that, right? If it's a matter of like when you walk in and I walk into your actual home and you want to feel peace because maybe your work is very busy, right? Then how can I create that internally? Maybe it actually means like I have to separate from the noise, from the activity, from my phone, and do something that is going to recharge me. So thinking about the actionable things that you can do to refill your gas tank. And I do think that it boils down to self-care, and at the same time, if you are someone who maybe over functions, okay, well, how much are you giving back to yourself? Like perhaps it's a little bit of slowing down the nervous system, getting a little bit out of that survival mode and finding out that actually I'm okay. Or there's this emotion that's driving my need to keep moving forward that I don't want to feel. So really it is a matter of, I think, slowing down in order to figure out what the next step is or needs to be, but giving back to yourself too. And that's going to look differently for everybody. So that's a little bit of a harder thing to 100% narrow down, but slowing down is going to be key.
So again, because it's all about me, thinking about this piece that I'm going through now and kind of looking at generational trauma that I really, up until this point, was not even aware of. Like, I was aware of some of it, but this whole boundaries piece has just been just a revelation for me, and not such a good revelation in a lot of ways. And, this idea of, I think I've evolved more than just like that little girl that was the people pleaser and, the one that had to get straight A's and did all the things. Like, I've definitely evolved since then, but I do look back and go, wow, like my personality was so shaped on the adults in my life and what I was responding to. And no kidding, right? Like, children, you don't have rights or kind of the freedom to express yourself completely like when you're younger, right? So I guess this idea of your identity built on what other people had invested in the situation, right? Their needs, their expectations from your kids, from your parents, to all of that, right? And I'm not quite sure what my question is, but I guess, is this common in your practice? Are you seeing a lot of women in midlife that are like, I have no idea who the fuck I am. And I need to figure that out. And if so, what are practices and tools that you typically suggest that might help them?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I do see that, right? Especially since we still do follow that a lot of the time, that path of what it is that we feel like we're supposed to do, whether that's, going to school or getting married or having children. There's still, I think that because we have the biological clock or maybe, pressures to, yes, have children, sometimes there is a sense of getting lost in that, trajectory that, yeah, we then lose sight of ourselves because it becomes about our kids or it becomes about our partner or even our businesses. And that's where we all of a sudden start to see like, I don't know what I'm doing anymore. I don't know who I am anymore. So in those scenarios, I think it's a matter of like getting a little bit more comfortable saying no. When you say yes to something, you're saying no when you say no to something, you're saying yes to something else, and vice versa. So, you think about, what am I saying yes to? I'm saying yes to giving more of myself away. Maybe I need to take some time for me. Or if I have that sense of, I really don't want to do this thing that I'm being tasked with doing, then don't, and set that boundary and do something for yourself. And that's really uncomfortable at times, for sure, especially if you've been operating for all of your life being told that you have to do something that you're not comfortable doing. It's not necessarily going to be easy, and it's not even the first time that you do it that all of a sudden you're going to start feeling better. It might actually feel a lot like grief, because you're letting go of an old way of being. So that's the other piece of it, is that none of this is going to be an overnight fix. We're so used to that nowadays. It might start to feel a little bit more uncomfortable at first, but in doing and over functioning and giving all of ourselves away, I mean, right now we've got nothing left anyway. Is it working? Going back to that first question, is this working? How well is it working?
I hate to quote Dr. Phil because I have feelings about him, but that how's that working for you thing, right? I mean, yeah, it's real.
The women that I see, when they're trying to set boundaries or trying to put themselves first or trying to prioritize their rest or their pleasure, right? They get so activated by their good girl conditioning. Like, if I do this, if I say no to somebody, if I set this boundary, if I don't do this for my dad, if I don't answer somebody's text right away, if I don't rush to rescue my kids, I'm a bad human, bad girl, bad mom, bad whatever. Trying to break away from that is so hard and yet so transformational. Once women can really start to give themselves permission to do that, that's when their whole lives open up.
And I think the other piece of it is like that we don't often talk about, like, I think we're talking more and more about like mom guilt and, things like that. But when we are just doing these things out of like fear of I'm going to be the bad daughter or the bad mom or, the bad friend, what we're talking about is I don't want to feel my own guilt. Well, why not? It's just a feeling, and even that, like, your guilt can clue you into something that, something needs to change. I'm doing too much. But because we don't want to feel it because it's bad to be guilty or, it's nobody wants to feel guilty 100%. Nobody wants to throw up either. But sometimes it has to happen.
And your best friend will be there to hold your hair.
Right. It's just a feeling. It's just a feeling. And with that feeling, we can say, all right, what does this mean? What needs to change? Maybe I need to start saying no. Maybe I've got too much on my plate. Maybe I can't do it all. And maybe that's okay.
I so appreciate you saying that. Because I've never really heard somebody say it. I've thought it and felt it. And I've been actually talking about it to my divorce girlies about the guilt. And it's like, it's okay to feel the guilt in the beginning because you're going to. If you're choosing yourself, if you're leaving a marriage, and especially if you have kids, you're going to feel the guilt. And guess what? It's okay as long as you don't live there. Don't set up camp there. Let's move through it. Let's process it. But you can't avoid it. And I just thank you. That was like such a light bulb for me when you just said that. So I appreciate you.
But I gotta say, like, even if you're not talking about divorce, that guilt feels like it is just pulled up a chair and sat in your house. Because, I mean, I'm not divorced. And let me tell you, the people in my family are not at all happy right now with the fact that I've chosen to put boundaries that are very firm in place and not do what's expected and not do what they want me to do just because they want me to do it, because it is not okay for me right now in my life. So I kind of feel like it doesn't even have to be about divorce, although I can totally see why that would be activating and definitely something around that. I just feel like women in general, when they decide to do something that's different from the typical expectation, different from what society wants them to do, all those things, because they've had to fall in line with that for so long, the pushback is ridiculous and it's swift and it is just punishing. And I have a lot of compassion for my girlies out there doing that because it is not easy. And I'm not quite sure where my question is in all of that, but I guess that whole idea of breaking the chain, right? I mean, it's a continuum, right? Like I have friends that have just completely cut ties with their parents. I have friends that have gotten divorced. So, that end of it to just kind of avoiding certain things, right? And no judgment at all either way, because I think both are valid choices. But I guess, and Karen, I know you deal with this a lot in your work, but it's like, when is enough enough? When are you like, nope, I'm out of this marriage, or nope, cutting off contact? And when is it just like, you know what, I'm just going to be busy when that particular person asks for something? And maybe it's a gray area. I don't know.
Okay, quick pause. Have we talked about the Pod Squad lately?
Oh, the Pod Squad. You mean our email list /VIP lounge /digital wine club?
Exactly. So listeners, if you're not on it yet, you're basically making life harder for yourself when it comes to podcasts.
Like trying to scroll for show notes while speed walking on a treadmill. Wait, what was that link again? Oh, no. Grab the side rails.
Or pulling up that book we mentioned while you're in the Starbucks line and then realizing everybody else moved up 3 cars and now you're that woman.
We've all been there. That's why we made the Pod Squad. You'll get new episode alerts every week with direct links. Easy to listen, easy to share.
And show notes straight to your inbox. So when we drop a life-changing product, book, hot tip, or yummy new drink, you're not rummaging through your memory like a woman searching for her reading glasses when they're on top of her head.
It's organized, it's helpful, it's for you, babes.
So join the Pod Squad. The link is in the show notes. Just tap it.
Snacks, sarcasm, solidarity.
And obviously, fighting the patriarchy.
We write at dawn.
Is that for me? Is that a question for me?
Sorry.
Oh.
I probably should have been more specific about it, but like, I guess what I'm saying is like, Karen works with quite a few women. Obviously, they're at the point where they're like, I think divorce is the option for me, right? Nobody wants to break up a marriage. Nobody wants to end a marriage. Like, you don't wake up one day and be like, I'm going to end my marriage. Yay. Right. Or cut ties with a parent, right? That is gut wrenching. That is aura ripping. That is horrible. Right. So I guess the question is, what level of toxicity do things have to be at before that really is the therapeutic choice? That is where you need to be, right? So I guess maybe the question is for both of you guys, maybe. How about that?
Yeah.
My answer is really short, and it's basically what I see, and I know this with myself as well. It's when you get sick and tired of your own bullshit. Like when you're so sick and tired of not having boundaries. If you're so sick and tired of shrinking inside your marriage, tired of staying inside a lonely marriage, and tired of not speaking up, whatever, right? It's like you're up to here and you can't do it anymore. And it's like, it's like you wave the white flag. At least that's what I see with my clients. What about you, Alyssa?
So I think that from a therapeutic standpoint, right, I'm looking at when you stop feeling safe, right? And I don't mean that physically. I mean it mentally. I mean it emotionally, right? It doesn't, I'm not saying like, you leave when it gets physically unsafe. I mean, that's a whole nother element here, but I'm talking about like, I'm telling you what I need, I'm telling you what I want, and it's not heard. And because it's not heard, I still don't feel like I'm here with you, like you see me at all. There's not this effort being put in. There isn't this sense of like, I matter here. And even like saying that out loud to your person or to whomever that it is that we're talking about, maybe it is a parent, what is their response then, right? Their response is going to be really telling, right? And now we're having a real conversation, right? We're talking about the fact that, hey, I am hurting. I'm telling you that I'm hurting. What are you going to do with that, right? Are you going to, that might be hard to hear. You might get defensive, absolutely. Okay, then why is that hard to hear? How come my pain, let's say the other person gets defensive. My pain matters too. What happens then? So when these conversations are had and they're not heard, and maybe you've tried, all of the different ways, and it just feels like staying, you're just bleeding yourself dry, or it starts to really feel like staying is unhealthy, perhaps then it is something to consider. But in terms of like, oh, what's the best route, it's really hard to say, because ultimately it is very much a feeling. I think though, when it starts to feel unsafe, that's where we're getting into unhealthy territory. Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever been told this before. I'm going to just take a wild guess. I think you're a little younger than Karen and I at 56 and 57, but I feel like you're such an old soul. Like the wisdom that you know what I mean, Karen? It's like the wisdom that you're throwing down is so like universal and so like, I just feel like it's comes from, I don't know what your background is, but from generations of like wise people like pouring into you, like the way that you present yourself and say this. So wow. I mean, you must be just a blessing to all your clients. I tell you what.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I come from, talk about generational trauma. It's like kind of like when you look back at like your lineage, I come from generations of strong women who had to be strong, right? Women who were the overfunctioners, who, gave a lot of themselves, and it was all about survival. And, I think I've done a lot of work on myself to say, like, that's not who I want to be. Not for my kids. I don't want that to be something that, carries on. But it's very interesting when you look back on all of your lineage, like, who was your mom? How were they in their marriages? How were they as a sister, a sibling, all of that? What messages am I still kind of holding on to? And I think, for me, this is what I do. I love this stuff. So yeah, I talk about it all the time, probably too much, but I think one of my little isms that I use with my clients is, you can't light a match on fire, just by holding it in your hand. It has to strike up against something, right? So if you find yourself having a big emotion to something, right, it's because there's something there that, was already there, that life struck up against. And so if we start to get curious with ourselves rather than judgmental, rather than immediately trying to define or compartmentalize, and really just kind of even, say to yourself, like, that's interesting. Why is that my reaction right now? Right? Then there's like an opportunity for even just self-validation or self-check-in around, like, what is it that I'm experiencing? And perhaps like that's not an experience that I've had, because I've just been told to pick yourself up and keep moving forward. But yet, if we sit there for a minute, I know it's very hard. I get it. It's very, very hard to slow down and do that. But if we make that a priority, we're going to have more of an opportunity to get to know ourselves, rather than from a place of stillness rather than reactivity. So I think that's one of my isms that I often lean back on.
Okay. Are you a Ted Lasso fan? Because I heard Ted Lasso in that, because he says, be curious, not judgmental.
I am the worst, because I realize from working with clients, I don't watch enough TV.
Girl, you've got to watch that episode. It's so, well, the whole series is so good, and people are always like, soccer. It's not about soccer. It's like Cheers was about being in a bar, right? It's not about that. It's the same kind of thing. Anyways, squirrel. Moving on.
I love that though, Alyssa. And Alex kind of touched on this in our first episode on trauma. It's just about being curious, because I think it is so hard for women to admit they might need help or support, or that they can't do it all. And one of the things we like to do on this podcast is just help women feel seen and feel that it's okay. Like we want to talk about the things that we've been told we're not allowed to talk about. And so I think if we can approach it with curiosity and just approach it as, wow, that's weird. Why did I do that? Why did I blow up at that situation when it really didn't warrant that kind of a reaction, right? And just get curious and then figure out, is that who I want to be? And if not, then do therapy with you.
and coaching with Karen.
Yeah. And I think it's more, so here's the big question, I guess, is like, the that's interesting, right, is a helpful way to kind of pause. And then also, what is this telling me? What is this emotion, this feeling, this moment telling me about what I need that I'm not getting? I think that's a really good, because ultimately that's what all of our emotions are. Sure, some of them are bigger, but perhaps a little bit of the meltdown, like you're talking about, like maybe that needed to fucking happen. Like
The
all
dishes
right.
needed to be broken. Just
Dishes
saying.
needed to be
And that board with the hole in it, that needed to go.
Fuck that board.
That board sucks.
I was stalking you a little bit and I was looking at your website, and I love your quote, and I wrote it down because I don't want to mess it up. But you said, healing yourself is the most powerful way to heal the world.
Love that.
That's your quote, right?
It's my quote. Yep.
Yeah. And so I just think when you sit back and you really think about that, it's like dealing with all of this stuff, and it's hard. It's like, Lisa, when we were talking about in the beginning, it's like we get to our age and we're like, I don't want to unpack all that. I don't want to talk about that. But I think we're doing it for the people in our lives also. We're doing it for our children. We're doing it for the people around us, and we're doing it for ourselves, obviously. But I just love that it's like, yeah, healing ourselves is the most powerful way to heal the world. And I think, yes,
I love that.
And
Yeah.
that's I think, like, there's another quote on the website. It's like, healing the individual heals the collective. And it's true. I believe it's true. I mean, I don't know, but I believe it's true in the sense of, everything begins within, right? So when we, let's say, admit the hard truth of, say, I'm maybe, judging somebody else. We all do it. And we don't want to admit it because that makes us bad, right? But say that we're judging somebody else. It's because I'm judging me. There's already some sort of measuring stick in the picture. And I'm trying to see where I fit up against somebody else because there's already this preconceived notion that I have about myself, right? So if we're working on accepting ourselves using this scenario, then yeah, I'm going to automatically be more accepting of someone else. Right. And so we think about that in terms of any other reactive emotion, right? If I'm making peace with, perhaps a parent that I've held a lot of anger, against for many years. Well, maybe, right, I'm going to have more patience for people that remind me of that person, people that remind me of my parent, or if I have kids that act in a certain way that remind me of like certain things from my childhood, I'm going to be more patient. Right? It doesn't mean that I'm going to allow certain behavior. It just means that, I'm not going to get as wrapped up in it or take ownership of it, but I'm going to be able to, move beyond it. So in that sense, if we're relating to ourselves in a calmer, more compassionate type of way, we're going to have more patience for other people. Yeah. And then for our kids, right? If we're breaking that pattern of being the good little girl and, be careful to get it right, don't cause any fights, don't piss any people off, right? Then we might raise a little girl, let's say if you have a daughter who's not going to be afraid to speak her mind and say no. And that's what we want.
We're both girl moms, and we talk about that, like, about what we wish for our daughters and what we try to prepare them for that we weren't prepared for. And I have a redhead, and oh my Lord, leadership skills, right? But the one thing that I did right is she is never going to take things lying down. I mean, that girl is fierce. And sometimes it's to me, which is freaking annoying, but I would rather have that than her being the little girl I was, which is just rolling over and finding some flaw in myself to make everything fixable. So, and I know Karen has, a lot of feelings around that with her daughter. So should we switch?
It's funny. So sorry, I'm going to interject here.
Please do.
She was just with me for almost 2 weeks. She came and stayed with me because she's in between jobs. And she will tell me that she's learned how to use her voice and how to stand up for herself and how to be a confident woman from watching me later in life. And she told me last week, she said, because we were kind of talking about it, and she said, I'm the you wish you could have been at my age. Wow. And I was like, yeah.
massive tears.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and I just think that's important, as hard as it is for us as
my
women of a certain age, especially, to break these patterns. People are watching. Our kids are watching. And I just think it's important.
Oh my God, I'm tearing up. Jeez, Karen.
I think another example that's probably, where I've seen it show up with clients is like if you're looking in the mirror and kind of judging, right? Like, oh, I look fat or whatever the case may be, right? Your daughter or your son is standing there, right? And that's going to be something that they just intuitively pick up. And now they might turn around and say they don't like how they look in their clothes. And it's completely like, sometimes it's just habit, or we look in the mirror and like we don't like how we look that day, but our kids are always listening and always watching and picking things up, and so in those small moments it matters.
So I don't know that we've specifically identified these as takeaways, but I feel like for the last few minutes we've been talking about takeaways. Anybody in the room have another particular takeaway that they feel like our listeners should come away with?
Well, I would just love to ask Alyssa that if you could tell the women out there, like if there's a woman out there and she's listening and she's seen herself in this episode and she's getting curious, what is a tangible step that she could take so she could start looking at these patterns or start healing some of these traumas or unhealthy patterns?
It goes back to like wanting the little bit of that like quick or fix. I mean, patterns it's taken years sometimes for them to get there. So to break them on your own might be kind of hard because it's normed. It may be a matter of first just recognizing that this isn't working, recognizing that I don't recognize the person in the mirror. I don't like the way that I put up with things that are just unacceptable, maybe. Like looking at your life with a mirror and saying like, is this it? Is this what I'm willing to settle for? Or do I want more? I do deserve more. And okay, so now how do I have that happen? And I think boundaries is a big one. I think taking time for yourself is a big one. And the other one that might be more accessible is, practicing saying no to things, And a big question of like, if I say yes to this, I'm saying no to something else. So I say yes to that barbecue. I'm saying no to my one day off by myself that I haven't had in a long time. Which one do I really need?
It's interesting that you talk about the no, because our second most downloaded episode of all time is no is a full sentence. So I feel like women in midlife are craving the permission to do that for sure. Well, this has been lovely. And as our favorite episodes often evolve, we will have Alyssa back. I just feel it in my bones. Alyssa, where can our listeners find you? What do you got cooking? Talk to us a little bit about what your world looks like and how they can be a part of it.
Yeah. So the best way to reach us is our website. That's www.collective-therapy.com. We do have a social media. We are on Facebook, but truth be told, we're not that active. I am an overfunctioner, so I'm doing the best that I can with what I've got. And so at some point we'll get back on social, but you could find us there. Best way is our website. We always have new events coming up, and there's wait lists for things that are, down in the pipeline. And we are working on an e-course. It's going to actually be free. It's a 21-day email challenge where you're going to get daily reflections for setting healthy boundaries and increasing your self-worth. So we'll have a wait list up for that shortly. And that's the best way to reach us. That's where you can schedule a consultation, send us an email. So,
Awesome.
That is amazing. A free course on boundaries.
No kidding. I think I'm signing up. God knows I need it. Or maybe I'll sign my dad up. That might be even better. Just saying.
Yeah.
That's not good boundaries, signing somebody else up for a course.
He can't access his email anymore, but a girl can dream. Anywho.
Well, listeners, thank you so much for joining us on this episode. I know I'm walking away with so many great little nuggets and aha moments. If you are feeling the same, please like, share, comment, give us that 5-star review.
We want you to join the Pod Squad. Okay. We promise. This is our email list. We're not selling your info, right? But it's our way that we can build on to the Drinks with the Girls 2.0 and kind of talk to you one-on-one. And for you guys, what's in it for you is you get the show notes delivered straight to your inbox. That's the way we're doing our show notes now. You get the show notes, and you're also going to get the episodes directly in your inbox every week. So you'll know, just click. And the cool thing is you can share it with the girlfriends. Super easy. You just forward it to them. So that is our ask right now. If you could please subscribe to the Pod Squad. That'll be in the links for the show. And you'll find Alyssa's information in the show notes. And yeah, so we really thank you for being with us for Therapy Hour. We'll have to do this again. So thank you so much, Alyssa, for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. I really am happy to be here. You have no idea. So.
Oh, we're excited. So I guess we'll all just say cheers and till next time, y'all.
Cheers.